Imagine waking up on a warm, sunny Saturday morning in eastern Idaho, June 5, 1976. Across quiet farming towns, families were enjoying a slow weekend, mowing lawns, washing cars in the driveway, and sitting down for breakfast, having no idea their lives were about to change forever. Tucked deep into the nearby river canyon sat the brand-new Teton Dam, a colossal earth-filled wall standing 305 feet tall, holding back a staggering 80 billion gallons of melted mountain snow. It was built at a staggering cost of $100 million, designed to control seasonal flooding and generate hydroelectric power for the region. For the very first time since its construction was completed, the reservoir behind it was filled to absolute capacity. But at 7:30 that morning, a routine site check spotted something chilling. A small, strange trickle of muddy water weeping right out of the dam's face. The true danger of the Teton Dam didn't start on that sunny June morning. It started millions of years ago, hidden deep underground. The dam was constructed right on top of fractured volcanic rock left behind by the ancient Yellowstone supervolcano. Over thousands of centuries, this brittle rock had cracked open into massive underground fissures, some as wide as 6 feet across, turning the canyon floor into a giant, hidden sponge. During construction, engineers recognized these massive gaps and attempted to seal them up by pumping thousands of tons of liquid concrete and grout deep into the earth to create an underground wall. But the cracks went far deeper into the bedrock than anyone anticipated. Every single time construction crews drilled a new hole, they kept hitting massive empty spaces they simply couldn't fill or test. Despite those underground warning signs, construction wrapped up and officials began filling the reservoir. When heavy spring snowmelt came rushing down the Teton River, workers pushed the fill rate up to 4 feet per day, a speed far faster than normal safety guidelines recommended. The rising water created a massive lake stretching 17 miles upstream, placing unprecedented water pressure against the dam's core. Unbeknownst to anyone, deep inside the structure, water had begun finding minute pathways through the soil matrix, a process known as internal erosion, or piping. By 9:30 a.m., that small muddy trickle transformed into a roaring, violent stream. A massive, saturated wet spot materialized high on the downstream face of the dam, and brown water began gushing out, dragging tons of dirt and rock with it. Panic immediately gripped the site workers. In a desperate, last-ditch effort to save the structure, 4 massive Caterpillar bulldozers were dispatched straight to the top crest of the dam. The plan was crazy but simple. Drive heavy equipment right over the leak and dump massive piles of dirt and rock down into the hole to plug it. Brave operators steered their multi-ton machines 305 feet in the air across the narrow rim, completely unaware that the earth beneath their heavy steel tracks was no longer solid, but a hollow, crumbling cavern waiting to collapse. Brave operators steered their multi-ton machines 305 feet in the air across the narrow rim, completely unaware that the earth beneath their heavy steel tracks was no longer solid, but a hollow, crumbling cavern waiting to collapse. By 8 a.m., a terrifying giant whirlpool began spinning on the lake's surface right behind the dam, sucking millions of gallons of water directly into the heart of the structure, like a giant drain. On the top crest, a massive sinkhole larger than a residential swimming pool caved in and began expanding rapidly. Bulldozer drivers pushed massive mounds of rock directly into the abyss, but the debris simply vanished into the roaring hole as the ground shook violently under their feet. At 11:15 a.m., site officials finally realized the battle was lost and made the urgent call to evacuate. Emergency sirens wailed across the dam site, and frantic phone calls were made to the county sheriff to begin immediate, forced evacuations for the downstream towns of Wilford, Sugar City, and Rexburg. Up on the dam crest, complete chaos erupted as the ground started crumbling faster than anyone predicted. One bulldozer lost its footing as the embankment gave way underneath, tipping backward into the roaring chasm. A second bulldozer teetered right on the precipice of the collapsing gap. In an unbelievable display of bravery, nearby workers threw thick ropes down to the trapped driver and hauled him up the steep dirt slope to safety just seconds before his machine slid into the pit. The heavy steel bulldozers vanished completely into the dark void as the remaining workers turned and ran for their lives towards solid ground. Then, at precisely Sheedan Worshulfin AM, the very top rim of the dam visibly sagged, dropped straight down, and blew wide open in a colossal explosion of brown mud, rock, and water. At 11:57 a.m., the entire right side of the earth-filled dam completely disintegrated. A massive 150-foot gap ripped open from top to bottom, unleashing 80 billion gallons of pent-up water all at once. An estimated 2 million cubic feet of water per second, a flow rate vastly more powerful than Niagara Falls, blasted through the breached wall with a deafening roar that shook the earth for miles around. The surging wall of water slammed down the narrow Teton River Canyon at 15 miles per hour. As it moved, it ripped giant boulders from the canyon walls, uprooted entire pine forests, and swept away heavy farm equipment like plastic toys, building up a massive battering ram of debris at the front of the wave. The very first community sitting in the direct path of destruction was the small farming town of Wilford, located just 5 miles downstream. Most of the 200 residents had heard the police sirens and managed to throw a few belongings into their cars and flee west. But a few families stayed behind, simply unable to believe that a brand new government-built dam could actually break. Within minutes, they saw it coming out of the canyon, a towering wall of churning brown water, 30 feet high, carrying shattered trees and debris. The flood hit Wilford with the force of a high-speed train. Houses didn't just fill up with water. They literally exploded on impact. Water pressure blew exterior walls outward, ripping roofs off their frames and reducing entire homesteads to splintered wood and thick mud in seconds. Continuing its path down the valley, the roaring flood waves slammed into Sugar City next. Residents there had a brief warning, but no human preparation could stop the sheer volume of water rushing down the valley. Main Street transformed into a raging river in the blink of an eye. Historic brick storefronts, diners, and local churches were gutted as heavy water smashed through display windows and stripped wood siding off buildings. People who were caught off guard scrambled onto the roofs of their homes or clung tightly to wooden utility poles. In an incredible act of rural American grit, local farmers launched small aluminum motorboats directly into the flooded residential streets, bravely steering through dangerous currents to pull stranded neighbors off rooftops and out of tree branches. By early afternoon, the surging floodwaters reached Rexburg, the largest city in the valley. As the water spilled out of the narrow river channels, it spread out fan-style across the broad, flat Snake River plain. Downtown Rexburg was submerged under 15 feet of murky brown water, with commercial buildings drowned up to their roof lines and local college dormitories flooded past the second floor. Despite the immense scale of the disaster, local police officers, deputies, and everyday volunteers went door to door in heavy trucks and boats, physically carrying elderly residents and young children to safety on higher ground. Thanks to those quick-thinking, heroic rescue efforts, loss of life across the entire region was kept surprisingly low, even as the economic heart of the region sat underwater. By 8 p.m. that evening, the giant reservoir high up in the canyon was completely empty. 80 billion gallons of water had drained away in under 6 hours, inundating nearly 200 square miles of countryside, destroying thousands of buildings and washing away vast stretches of prime potato and grain farmland. When the floodwaters finally began to recede over the next few days, they left behind a heavy, toxic layer of gray silt mud, often 3 to 4 feet deep. As the summer sun beat down, this thick mud dried out like solid concrete inside basements, living rooms, and fields. Families returned to find their life's work, treasured photo albums, and family heirlooms caked in hardened dirt, marking the start of a grueling cleanup effort. In the weeks following the disaster, federal investigations were launched to answer one simple question: how could a brand-new, modern government dam fail so catastrophically on its very first fill? Official panel reports concluded that the collapse was caused by a combination of unsealed bedrock cracks, inadequate grout curtains, and flawed assumptions about local geological conditions during the design phase. National news cameras captured government committees and congressional hearings examining broken rock samples in laboratories. Ultimately, the United States government accepted responsibility, paying out hundreds of millions of dollars in compensation claims to local families and farmers, pushing total damage estimates well past the $1 billion mark and completely changing dam safety standards across America. The Teton Dam Disaster fundamentally reformed civil engineering practices across the globe. Federal agencies instituted strict new inspection and safety protocols that changed how major water infrastructure projects are designed, monitored, and built today. But as for the Teton Dam itself, it was never rebuilt. If you visit the canyon site today, you'll find the massive, broken concrete abutments still clinging to the high canyon walls, separated by a giant, empty gap where 80 billion gallons of water once sat. Nature has slowly reclaimed the ground, with pine trees and wildflowers growing over the ruined concrete blocks, leaving behind a permanent, quiet monument to what happens when human confidence clashes with nature. If you drive through Wilford, Sugar City, or Rexburg today, you would never guess that a catastrophic flood swept through these streets decades ago. The region has completely rebuilt into thriving, vibrant communities, supported by strong local agriculture, growing businesses, and close-knit neighborhoods. The people who lost everything back in 1976 rolled up their sleeves, cleared away millions of tons of mud, and rebuilt their towns block by block with remarkable resilience. Yet, despite the passage of time, the memory of that fateful June morning remains deeply embedded in local history, passed down through family stories, community historical markers, and town archives. Every year on June 5th, community members and surviving eyewitnesses gather at local memorial sites to honor the resilience of their neighbors and remember the day the dam broke. The collapse of the Teton Dam remains far more than just a historical case study in engineering failure. It stands as a powerful testament to the strength of human community when facing sudden disaster. It serves as an enduring reminder that no matter how advanced our modern structures may seem, nature ultimately sets the terms, and when disaster strikes, our survival comes down to watching out for one another. Have you ever heard about the Teton Dam collapse before? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching.